Okay, as I come off of a really super busy week, in a good way though, and I think about how kind of tired I am, and I'm talking to a lot of women right now who are sharing this with me. I that's what this conversation, this episode is going to be about, and I talked to clients about this actually this week. I think there are a lot of women walking around completely exhausted, but they don't fully even realize their nervous system has never learned to power down. And that's part of the problem. So I think let's let's talk about this. So I think you can most clearly see this issue of not knowing how to power down at around 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning. And some of you may go, I know exactly what you're talking about, Lori. So you wake up for a second. And before your eyes are even fully open, your brain starts to carry on a conversation. It starts carrying things, and then starts talking to you, most likely about it. It starts carrying the weight of responsibilities and schedules and maybe conversations you had that you're replaying, or you're thinking about how you would have said this or that differently. Maybe you're carrying the weight of finances and health concerns, either for you or family members. Maybe you're carrying around things you forgot to do or things you still have yet to handle. And just all, like fears about what might happen or worries about, you get it, right? It's like you wake up and then your brain immediately opens 57 tabs, and all at once. And I find it very interesting that most of the women who experience this are not women who are feeling this way because they don't take care of what they need to take care of. It's not about that. They're not irresponsible women. They're usually the most capable women. In fact, the most dependable women, the women who everyone else leans on at work and at home. They're the women who are like the friend who everyone goes to a lot of times. They're the women who have to remember everything, handle everything, manage everything, carry everything. And I say this about a lot of things as it relates to women like this. From the outside, looking in, they look super productive, super high functioning, super got all their shit together. But inside, internally, their nervous system is unhinged. Their nervous system never exhales, never fully unclenches itself. And I think there are a lot of women who have been and do still emotionally brace themselves. And they've been doing that emotional embracing um for so many years that they don't even recognize it, or they don't consciously feel it anymore. Because when when hypervigilance becomes your normal, you become so accustomed to it that you stop recognizing it, calling it, labeling it, realizing it's stress. You start saying things like, that's just my life. It's my personality. I'm just a thinker. I've always been this way. I just like to stay on top of things, right? Oh my gosh, I have said so many of those things, and I did for so long. But underneath all of that, there's a nervous system that never really calms. It never feels able to rest. And I think this is really especially true for women who are in midlife. And I'm not saying that it wasn't true before that, but it becomes more visible. impacts us more during midlife because at this point in life, many of us have been doing this for decades, carrying the accumulated weight and responsibility of so many things. It was our kids, now it's our parents aging, maybe. It was, the marriage and working on it, and perhaps even stress and strife during times during that those decades, health stresses and changes, work responsibilities, making decisions about a million different things to the point that you get fatigued by all of those decisions. And so that, there's this mental and physical load, not to mention the emotional labor that so many women carry around that nobody even sees. And eventually, the brain gets trained into believing things like, if I just keep thinking about everything, then maybe I can prevent something from falling by the wayside or from falling apart. And so at 3 a.m., your brain starts planning and rehearsing and anticipating and problem solving. And here's a really hard part about that. Sometimes the brain rather mistakes planning and rehearsing for control. But mentally looping through worst case scenarios at 3 a.m. does not create control. It does not create peace. It usually only compounds into more activation, more adrenaline, more tension, more and heightened cortisol levels, and more exhaustion. And then women wake up already tired, already overwhelmed, already feeling behind, and definitely behind emotionally before the day even begins. And over time, that kind of chronic nervous system strain changes people. It from internally, physically, and mentally. It changes over time. It changes hunger and cravings. It changes your ability to sleep in a restful way. Your patience and your moods change. You become more inflamed. Your ability to recover emotionally, psychologically, but also physically, that changes. Your ability to make the best decisions, that changes. But it also changes something even deeper. And I'm not going to get woo about this. That's not me. But it also changes how you think of yourself. It changes your relationship with yourself because eventually a lot of women stop feeling like human anymore. They stop feeling like a human female with emotions and everything, and they start feeling like managers, supervisors of life, and including everyone else's life. They feel like this this just manager with endless responsibilities. And and I really think that's one of the saddest parts. A lot of women are doing that, and in midlife we start to wonder, like, what about my happiness? What's my role now? When do I get my turn? And they secretly start kind of grieving, missing themselves in a way that feels like grief. They start grieving their former selves and missing that version of them that used to feel calmer and more present and happier, actually joyful. Um, the version of them that felt more connected. But when your nervous system is constantly scanning for the next problem and bracing for the impact of what could come, then it becomes really hard to feel fully alive inside your own life. I'd love to hear, you can't talk back to me right now. Obviously, I'm recording this, but I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever thought, I'm just going through the motions and I don't like where did all the time go? I'm just going through the motions and I don't feel like I'm getting to enjoy life anymore. And it's flying by. Have you ever had any thought like that or related thought? One of the things I was talking to recently with one of the women in my client program is this idea of giving your nervous system a place to land. And then I talked on a group coaching call with clients about this too. And I love that phrase, giving your nervous system a place to land. And that's how I described it to her first and then to the group that I was talking to about this. I love that phrase because I think that's what so many women are missing, a place to land. Not another strategy for being more productive, not another supplement, not another morning routine, although there's nothing wrong with those, but a landing place. Because when the brain wakes up at 3 a.m. and it starts opening every mental tab possible, most women unconsciously start following all those thoughts. Follow this thought and then follow that thought, right? You start chasing all of that down. Every fear on that thought path, every responsibility, the what ifs, and then you start thinking about future potential problems. And the nervous system just keeps spiraling and escalating, right? And sometimes what helps is intentionally giving your brain that landing space. Well, what does that look like? It's one grounding thought to return to instead of following the loops, following the thought path. And I want to be clear about this. It's not because life should be magically perfect and it's not, there's something wrong. It's not because your stress isn't real. It's not because you are defective in some way. It's not that. But it's because your nervous system needs something other than fear and racing to practice, to rehearse. So, what does that look like? What is the one grounding thought that you can return to instead? And this takes practice. But for some of my clients who I give this strategy to, that grounding thought, that place that they create for their nervous system is in the form of a scripture. For some it is returning to the thought of prayer and going through a prayer. For some women, it's a simple thought statement that they can rehearse. Something like, I don't have to solve tomorrow's issue tonight. I don't have to solve this tonight. I don't have to solve this tonight. I don't have to solve this tonight. And no, the phrase, the prayer, the scripture, none of that is magic. None of it is, repeating woo-woo stuff that's like, oh, if you look in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm beautiful, I'm pretty, everyone likes me, then all your problems are going to go. It's not magic in itself. What is magic, and I will say it that way, the thought is not magic. The interruption is the magic. Because when you consciously choose to go to that grounding thought and repeat it, and that's what I'm suggesting that you do, that interruption creates space in your brain. And space is often what an overwhelmed nervous system has been missing for years. You stop the chasing, the racing every thought path, you stop racing down it, and you give yourself one grounding thought so that the overwhelmed nervous system has space to calm down. And I think so many women underestimate how much repetitive thought patterns shape their emotional state. Because if the brain is constantly rehearsing, I can't keep this up. What if something goes wrong? I'm behind. I need to get this done. I have too much to do. I have too much to carry. The body responds accordingly. Where the brain goes, the body is going to follow. And after enough years of that, calm can actually start to feel uncomfortable and unfamiliar. And sometimes it can even feel a little unsafe to you. Like, what? Wait a minute, what's going on here? And there are a lot of women, you may be one of them, who feel guilty resting. Women who feel anxious when things are quiet. Things are going too good. When's the other shoe going to drop? Women who only feel productive when they're overwhelmed. That was me for many years. Only felt productive when I was completely overwhelmed and stressed out and under pressure. And that's not a character flaw. That's what happens when a nervous system adapts to chronic pressure for long enough. And I think a lot of women need to hear that you were not designed to mentally carry every possible outcome at all times. You were not meant for that. You were not designed for that. And maybe healing for some women starts with learning that you don't have to emotionally brace yourself every second of the day to be responsible. That's not responsible. That's not what responsibility is. And maybe it starts with noticing the thoughts that your brain automatically rehearses. And maybe it starts with interrupting those thoughts. And dare I say, maybe it starts with giving yourself permission to stop solving life at 3 a.m. Because I don't think most women need another lecture about stress management. I don't. I think many, many women need help remembering what safety feels like inside their own brain and their own body again. So, tonight, if you go to bed and you wake up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, seems to be the pattern I hear. That was definitely my window. If you go to bed tonight and you wake up and your brain immediately starts to open those tabs, maybe before following every thought down a rabbit hole, you pause, you breathe, and remember to exhale it and not hold it. And you give your nervous system somewhere softer to land. Not forever, but for that moment. That might just matter more than you realize it does. Thanks for being here with me. I always appreciate these conversations that we have, and I'll meet you right back here next time.